Interesting reports emerging from Silverstone as the newly acquainted asset Adrian Newey has started to make demands from the owner Lawrence Stroll. Reportedly, the Brit is not satisfied with the services of Lance and believes that he won't be able to extract the maximum potential out of the car. And with Verstappen's services being mentioned as well, Aston Martin could be in for a huge shakeup in the short-term future. But will Adrian Newey have an impact on the lineup? And even more importantly, will he be the decisive factor to break down the nepotism that's holding back all of the potential from Aston Martin's latest signings? Adrian Newey is set to start his work in Aston Martin later this year in March, and it seems like the Brit doesn't want to waste a second of his precious time in terms of bringing glory to the Silverstone-based squad. The mastermind has thought about the lineup as one of the biggest obstacles when it comes to extracting more potential out of the car, and reports from Silverstone state that he made private requests to Lawrence Stroll when it comes to the services of his son. There is no doubt that Lance Stroll is the black sheep in Formula 1, and for the paradox to be greater, he is the reason why the team brought the personnel they did in the past couple of months. His father wouldn't be investing if his son didn't have a seat, but Formula 1 is a business above everything, and Lawrence knows that better than anyone. So making Newey a partner in his team might be a decision that he could regret if things start to deteriorate at a rapid rate. The report arrived from the Daily Mail, or more precisely from Jonathan McAvoy, and he further commented that the Silverstone-based squad is ready to go all in and make the perfect lineup with Alonso and Verstappen from 2026 onwards. It's unlikely that would happen in 2026 because Verstappen stated he wants to try out how things will go with Red Bull in the first year of the regulations, but a move outside of the Austrian team hasn't been ruled out. Quite the contrary, in fact, it's been constantly talked about by his father Jos. But let's go back to Newey and his impact at Aston Martin. The sole fact that he was able to go against the most protected driver on the team and likely on the grid goes to show that he knows the value he brings to the table, and he doesn't plan to waste it on drivers who don't deserve his feedback. As harsh as it sounds, 2024 summarises the season of Lance the best. He scored 24 points compared to Alonso, who scored 70. And if you want to see a lowlight of his career, just watch the warm-up lap in Interlagos in 2024. It's not just Newey who arrived to Aston Martin in the latest investment package. Lawrence was able to bring staff like Enrico Cardile, who was the ex-technical director of Ferrari, as well as Andy Cowell, who was the engineering director in Mercedes and will serve the role of team principal in Aston Martin from 2025 onwards. Not to mention, of course, that Honda comes in the mix as well, as the Japanese team will supply Aston Martin with engines in the newly regulated era. So all of these investments and packages do not come without its cons for Lawrence. He is likely aware that his son is not made for this sport, or at least he doesn't want to show the potential because he knows that the seat is guaranteed, and as long as he has his father in charge, nothing will change. But the people in charge themselves could suffer from tremendous pressure by the people that we've just talked about, because they didn't come here to see Lance crash their car every second race and be arrogant on the team radio every race. What we need to mention here is that while Newey is definitely the greatest name out of everyone who's been brought to Aston Martin, he can't act on this matter alone. Lawrence might not be the smartest man to keep his son on the team for so long, but there will be a lot of loyalty testing among these assets to see who's ready to do what it takes in order to bring the first championship to the team. Of course, Honda will also have a big say because they've been taking care of their drivers very well. Just look at how long Tsunoda managed to keep his seat in Red Bull despite his first years being a complete disaster. Now he is even a legitimate candidate to be signed by Aston Martin apart from Verstappen, which makes things kind of feel like poetic justice where Honda are taking away their engines and one of their drivers from Red Bull. So a business decision would have to be made sooner rather than later, but given the fact that Newey had a wish to work with either Alonso, Hamilton or Ferrari before his career ends, we do know for a fact that he will put his trust in the two-time world champion to extract the absolute maximum out of the car from 2026 onwards. But if you're to win the Constructors' Championship, you would need 2 drivers scoring high points, like McLaren did this year. And if the team is not competitive in the Drivers' Championship with at least one of their cars, then it's certainly going to be discussed as to whether or not a change is needed in the drivers' lineup. A potentially good piece of news for Lance is the fact that Fernando Alonso admitted that he doesn't have too much time ahead of him and that 2026 is likely to be his last season in the sport. This is when his contract ends, so even if the glorious £1 billion project for Verstappen is to be fulfilled, which the team denied, it would likely be for Alonso's seat, not Lance. When talking about his future, Fernando said, "The expectations in 2026 will be high because it's a new change, a new car, change of regulations, a car made by Adrian. Probably, or at least to start with, it will be my last season in Formula 1 because my contract finishes at the end of 2026, so it's the time of delivering and the time of truth. I will start the season thinking like that for sure because I cannot think too much in the future. At the moment, my current contract is for 2 more years. With my age, my motivation, I don't know how it's going to be. If the 2026 season is running smoothly and we're having a good time and there is a possibility to race 1 more year, I will be open for sure. I will not close the door beforehand, but I will not start the season with that mindset." And as we already know, Lawrence knows no boundaries when it comes to investing in personnel, which is why there have been reports that Aston Martin is willing to make Verstappen the most lucrative driver of all time, paying him up to £1 billion over an extended period of time. Money is definitely not the issue here for both sides, and in order to prevent further speculation, Aston Martin have come out with an official announcement that these rumours are empty and they have not sent an offer towards the Dutchman's camp. But where there's smoke, there's fire, and the situation in Red Bull is far from perfect. Let's not forget that it's the internal bleeding caused by Horner that saw the turmoil that brought Newey to Aston Martin. So to say that the Brit will sit idle in Aston Martin and won't focus on bringing Verstappen on board would most likely not be the case. Jos Verstappen, the voice of Max when it comes to these difficult questions, has said it loud and clear that Red Bull have a very difficult mission ahead of them, which is to build a car that can win races. If it can't, then his son would be looking at another team as his potential next home. And when talking about this to a greater extent, Jos said, "Anything is possible. Max can stay at Red Bull if he sees a sense in it. His goal is to be able to win races. If he is of the opinion that this is no longer possible at Red Bull, a change is not ruled out. Red Bull has to build a car that is no longer difficult to drive. If you look at the second half of 2024, you can't be optimistic. Red Bull has a big task ahead of it in 2025. With all this in mind, do you think that Newey is making tremendous pushes in order to get rid of Lance Stroll? And if so, do you think that he will find support in the newly acquired assets of the Silverstone-based squad? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in Hamilton's latest testing schedule with Ferrari, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.